kedua ini kita akan membahas tema Global and Local Success Measures dengan topik yang menukik pada persoalan tentang anti-piracy billboards, its efficacy around the world, and local IP success in international market. Jadi masih terkait dengan sesi pertama tadi. Untuk itu kami undang moderator kita untuk sesi kedua ini, Ibu Meiske Taurisia. Pada Ibu Meiske kami persilakan.
Selamat pagi semuanya, selamat pagi atau siang. Berikutnya kita akan masuk ke sesi kedua. Untuk itu saya akan mulai dengan memanggilkan para narasumbernya. Pertama saya akan panggilkan Danaher from Chapman University. Silakan maju ke depan. Seperti yang kita baca profilnya ada di dalam buku ini, Danaher adalah seorang ilmuwan data, seorang perintis yang menggunakan analisis data dalam industri hiburan. Ya, nanti kita akan mendengarkan presentasinya. Kemudian saya panggilkan juga Frank Rittman from Center for Content Promotion. Frank Rittman ini adalah awalnya sebagai pengacara, tapi kemudian dia kini bekerja di Center for Content Promotion dan Managing Director di Motion Picture Licensing Corporation di Asia Pasifik. Kemudian selain kedua pembicara ini, kita akan juga ditemani oleh Angga Sasongko. Silakan. Angga Sasongko adalah produser dan sutradara dari Visinema Pictures. Kemudian juga Bapak Sihar. Sihar adalah bagian advokasi dari Badan Perfilman Indonesia. Hello, so just to remind you that this session, because it's both from like English speaking and Indonesian speaking, and also the audience will be Indonesian, so probably then during the discussion there will be more Indonesian language. So if there's any question from them for you guys, then I will translate it to you. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Kemudian untuk sesi ini kita akan mulai terlebih dahulu dengan presentasi yang akan dimulai oleh presentasi dari Frank Rittman, kemudian dilanjutkan dengan presentasi dari Danaher, dan selanjutnya kita akan lanjut langsung dengan tanggapan dari Mas Angga dan Pak Alex, dan di akhir kita akan buka session untuk pertanyaan kepada audiens semuanya. Okay, so Frank, we know that you have a presentation and also Brad, so we'll start from you guys with Frank and then Brad, and then each of you have 10 to 15 minutes. So, okay, let's start.
Good morning, everyone. Just going to wait for a minute before my slide deck comes up. There we go. Thanks very much for that kind introduction, and on behalf of the Center for Content Promotion, I'm very pleased to be with you here in Jakarta this morning. My thanks to the local host, APROFI, and Craft, for their kind help in organizing this event. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the CCP, it was established in 2007 at a time when we first started to hear the mantra of this anywhere, anytime, any device content consumption. And the discussion in those days really was a little bit two-dimensional. It was talking about technology interests on the one side, who were described as new and innovative and disruptive, and they talked about content on the other side as a tired old industry, a bunch of dinosaurs, very stodgy. And the discussion would be that it would be a great and wonderful digital future if the content guys would just get out of the way. Now, we felt that was a little bit unfair because, in fact, the creative industries have built themselves off of technology and have embraced it at every step of the way. And we thought it was necessary, therefore, to create a forum for independent discussion where these seemingly disparate interests could meet in the middle. So the CCP seeks to promote accurate, updated, relevant information about our shared digital future. And since forming some 10 years ago, we've participated in conferences, and workshops, and seminars around the region. There's a link to our website, and you can find a tremendous amount of information that might be relevant to you. Now, I was going to run a video. This is a TED Talk from Zimbabwe, talking about the creative economies, but in the interest of time, I'm going to leave it. What was interesting to me, though, is that this same discussion we're having in Jakarta is taking place all around the world. Link there at the bottom. Perhaps you might want to check it out there, but I'm going to move on. Now, aside from the social and cultural significance of the creative economies, they have a monetary impact as well. And this is where policymakers need to pay attention. Because the creative industries are, or can be, big businesses. Now, the Motion Picture Association, for example, has commissioned a number of studies that determine the impact that the film and television industries have on local economies, which shows that the copyright industries in general are very good businesses to protect. Now, in Indonesia, for example, I believe the last statistics surveyed in the year 2010, so it's a bit dated. But in my recollection, there was an estimated $7 trillion, almost 7 trillion rupiah rather, that was contributed to the Indonesia's GDP by the film and television industries. It supported about 192,000 jobs, and it generated almost $800 billion in tax revenues for the government. Now, I mentioned earlier, content delivery has been transforming over the past 15 years. When I was growing up, if you wanted to see a movie, you went to a movie theater. And then you waited a few years and it would show up on television. We didn't have cable TV in my day. And then came the home industry video, VHS tapes, and then DVDs, and then the internet. And again, consumers quite naturally wanted to use the internet as an opportunity for anywhere, anytime, any device content consumption. So the latest evolution in this trend of consumer taste is what's being called OTT, over-the-top delivery. And that's really just a fancy name for the phenomenon of storing content on servers that's made available to consumers from online storage servers whenever they want to see it and whenever they want to see it. It's no longer a transactional owning experience where you're buying a DVD and keeping it. You're simply sitting at home and pulling up legitimate enterprises and watching it. And I think this is very cool as a consumer. And the industry is indeed adapting. There's lots of OTT services now that were completely unheard of 5 years ago. And again, these are all very attractive to consumers. They're very reasonably priced, at least for now. They offer a good volume of content. It's equipment agnostic. It can be played on your phone, it can be played on your tablet or on your device. But it's certainly a big change for the home entertainment industry. Now, it's not really clear how many of these OTT operators, these logos around the fringe, are going to be around in 5 years, but it's a good illustration of how the creative economies have enabled new consumer experiences and new distribution methods. But unfortunately, the bad guys have figured this out too. And they also have been responsive to consumer demands. So pirates recognize that hard goods are also on the decline to somewhat, but the internet offers them an attractive opportunity to ascend. The internet provides pirates with the perfect distribution channel. It's low cost, it's low risk, and it's a high profit. Now, obviously the pirate's business model has changed. They've shifted from selling DVDs that you pay to home and take home to now letting you watch free for an experience that's subsidized largely by advertisements, or in some cases, subscription prices. And interestingly, an outgrowth of this is that sometimes legitimate brands end up funding the advertising revenue for these pirate sites. I'm going to skip through a couple of these because, again, we're pressed for time, but there's one in Indonesia that I want to focus on. And again, a lot of times these advertisements that will pop up are for legitimate brands, but a lot of time they're also for what we call high-risk industries, things like gambling, adult entertainment, or fishing schemes. And this is a breakdown you can see of how things go around the region. But drilling down on Indonesia just for a minute, you can see that this is research commissioned again by the MPA. It shows the different types of ads that appear and in Indonesia there's a high incidence of gambling advertisements. Roughly 3 out of every 4 ads that come across our pirate sites relate back to gambling. Now, drilling down a little bit further, this is some disturbing research. This seems to show that the pirates are winning the game. According to Alexa data that was compiled in 2016, comparing page views from the top 5 pirate sites at the top pirate content sites in Indonesia against the top 5 legitimate content sites in Asia. And you can see that consumers were almost 10 times more likely to access pirate sites than legitimate sites. Now think about that for a minute, especially if you're a creator. What if for every 1 paying customer out there, there are almost 10 who weren't? Now, in fact, an estimated 174 million illegal downloads of movies and TV programs in Indonesia on BitTorrent alone in 2016. And you can see that by the end of 2016, BitTorrent was on the decline, while other forms of piracy were on the ascent, notably cyberloggers in the United States. But what I think the interesting thing about the prediction is, and this came out of Carnegie Mellon University, was that if piracy was completely stamped out of Indonesia, the box office would experience an increase of roughly 15%. Now, all this data that I'm presenting very quickly here is available on the MPA's website. And I just noted to illustrate the state of affairs that existed in 2016. And just like the creative economies are a worldwide phenomenon, so too is online piracy. So what can we do about it? Well, just one approach. By now, there's a growing consensus around the world to focus on so-called supply-side solutions, such as site blocking. And by now, you can see that more than 40 countries around the world engaged in site blocking against pirate sites. 43 countries, in fact. That's a pretty significant number. And as far as I can tell, the internet hasn't broken because of it. So I think that's another myth that we can dispel right here and now. Site blocking doesn't seem to break the internet. And you can see by now, a significant number of Asian territories are doing it. And again, here's the breakdown. This is from, again, an informational chart that's available on the MPA's website. And it breaks down the various jurisdictions that engage in site blocking, whether they do it through judicial means or through administrative means. And it gives the most recent numbers on sites that are known to be blocked in each jurisdiction. I'm going to skip this one, again, in the interest of time. So, what about site blocking in Indonesia? Is it effective? And what effect, if any, does it have on legitimate sales? Well, once again, some research was commissioned from a data firm called SimilarLab, and they analyzed 4 rounds of site blocking here in Indonesia. And you can get this study again from the MPA, but in broad strokes, it showed that site blocking significantly impacted the traffic to those sites that were blocked. But it also showed the traffic to unblocked sites that also offer pirate content increased significantly. And when you combine those 2 factors, the overall impact seems to be that as a result, seems to result in a slight impact of piracy overall. I think that's something we might want to ask Brett to speculate about in his remarks. Anyway, here's the breakdown. The chart shows the 4 rounds that were surveyed, the dates that the blocking orders were issued, the number of sites that were involved, and the percentage of total piracy for sites visits which those particular sites were responsible for. So in other words, in August 2015, the 21 sites that were ordered to be blocked accounted for approximately 9% of all the traffic to pirate sites in Indonesia that month. The 4 sites blocked the next month amounted for about 3% of the total traffic to pirate sites that month, and so on. And what we see here is that the traffic to those blocked sites seems to have gone down significantly and quickly, and it stayed down with respect to those blocked sites for a significant period of time afterwards. So we can probably and unequivocally conclude that blocking pirate sites reduces traffic to those pirate sites. But it looks like people just found another place to go. Because we see a notable uptick of activity towards these unblocked sites. And one in particular, the 4th line is a little bit concerning. Yeah, there we go, sorry. 175 sites blocked, but traffic to the unblocked sites was estimated to increase by 91%. And I think Brett's probably going to tell us the key to that would be knowing what the total number of the numerical business was. In other words, a 91% increase of what number to begin with. But more importantly, what do you do with these overall numbers? What do they show? Well, one answer might be that you simply do more and more site blocking. That slide that I referenced about 5 slides ago showed 304 pirated sites that have been blocked in Indonesia as of the end of last month, which is certainly very impressive. But if you consider it in comparison to the number of sites blocked in Indonesia for other reasons than copyright, such as pornography or radicalism, you get a sense of the volume of what's being dealt with out there on the internet. I don't think many people outside of Indonesia know, for example, that the country has in fact blocked access to almost 800,000 sites through last year alone. Now, the latest news is that the government has invested about $15 million in an automated tool that can identify objectionable content faster and more efficiently, and it seems to be bearing some good results. So to me, this begs the question of whether this tool and other resources, including the government's full conviction and determination, can be used to help fine-tune this access against pirate sites. So, just to conclude, creative economies are on the rise throughout the world, from the Americas through Indonesia to Zimbabwe. It's a global phenomenon and it's economically significant. It still can be an industry that's beset by piracy, however, and the piracy does detract from the industry's overall potential impact. But there are things that can be done, particularly on the enforcement side, and the question is whether everybody has the commitment, the enforcement, and the will to keep at it. But here's a guy that might have some answers for us. Please introduce our next speaker. This is Dr. Brett Danaher, and he's visiting with us from Chapman University in Los Angeles. Brett got his economics degree at Haverford College, and he received his doctorate degree at the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. He's previously taught at Wellesley College as well as at Carnegie Mellon University, and you can see he's a very prolific author. He's done an extensive amount of empirical data on the effect that piracy has, and he makes this information available to companies and to governments to help them advise them how to fine-tune their economy. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Brett.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. Thanks for the introduction, Frank. So my name is Brett Danaher. I'm a professor of economics and management science at Chapman University. My research, I tend to focus on 2 different areas. largely I do research on the entertainment industries, but I do kind of two different sides to that. One is using the tools of data science to help entertainment companies, movie studios, music labels, television networks, sort of better serve their consumers. And then the other side is using the tools of economics and data analytics to try to understand how copyright policy should look in the digital era, an era of piracy and digitization. So, what I want to do today is talk a little bit about copyright policy, and in particular focus on some of the empirical research that we're doing to try to inform this. The mission that I have here is that I feel that the debate over copyright enforcement going on in the world and in just about any country that I visit to talk about often takes on very philosophical notes. People have almost theologically entrenched opinions about it. And my sense is that a little data and a little bit of analysis can go a long way in trying to help us figure out what are the best policies and what we should be doing. So I'm not an advocate for the content industries. I'm not an advocate for pirates either. I'm just an advocate for the use of data for better decision making. So the research that I'm going to talk about today is actually with some co-authors at Carnegie Mellon University. They have a center for the Initiative for Digital Entertainment Analytics. And so together, we've done a lot of work trying to understand what sorts of anti-piracy enforcement policies are effective and which ones aren't effective. This is just a list of a few of the studies that we've done. But again, we're not advocates. Sometimes we find that some policies aren't effective, but then sometimes we also find some that are. So our job we see is to figure out what are the most efficient ways of mitigating the impact of piracy on sales. And what I'd like to do today is talk about one of the ones that we found was very effective and was very efficient, and that's piracy website blocking. So the only question I'm going to ask today is piracy website blocking effective? But that's actually three questions if you think about it, because there's three ways that you might want to measure effectiveness. And I think of these as in order of importance from the least to the most important. The first thing you could ask is just, does blocking piracy websites cause a decline in traffic to those sites? Certainly that's important, and that if it didn't, the other questions wouldn't even matter. But at the same time, if all I do is stop people from going to the Pirate Bay, but I don't stop them from going to pirate sites, and I don't cause an increase in legal, traffic to legal sites or legal consumption of media products, as an economist, I sort of ask, what's the point? So the second question is, does piracy website blocking actually cause a decline in total piracy? In other words, do the people who stop going to the blocked sites, do they find other pirate sites, or do they actually stop pirating? And then the third, and to me the most important question is, does this actually have any impact on the creative industries, on the ability to monetize content and produce revenues for the industry? So do people start buying more or viewing more legal content? Measuring the effect of any enforcement policy is not easy, and any economist can tell you that this is a difficult thing to do. You may have heard before the phrase, correlation is not causation. In other words, in this case, anytime we take some sort of action, things like legitimate media sales are changing over time for a lot of reasons, right? There are, older content declines in interest over time. There are spikes in content viewing because of new popular content being introduced. And then, of course, there's just peaks around the holidays, like around summer or around the winter holidays. So the question is, how can we disentangle the effect that an action has, like blocking a bunch of pirate websites, from all of the other things that are changing legal media sales over time? So what my colleagues and I did is we studied what we call 3 experiments in the United Kingdom. So there were 3 separate waves of website blocking that we studied in the UK. The first was sort of the first major pirate website block there, and they took the Pirate Bay, which was by far the most popular pirate website in the UK in 2012, and the courts ordered internet service providers to block access to that site. So that was one site, but it was a really, really big pirate site. Then, about a year and a half later, in November 2013, there were 19 of the remaining major piracy sites were blocked simultaneously. And then a year after that, 53 of the remaining pirate sites were all blocked simultaneously. So we studied each one of these experiments to try to figure out, which were any of these effective, and if so, can we explain why they were? What we did is we got data from an internet panel tracking company, and to keep this from being a long-winded explanation, I'll just say that we basically have data on the month-to-month internet site visits of about 30,000 different consumers in the United Kingdom. They had software on their computers that essentially allowed us to track all the websites that they visited and what they did there. The way that we thought about this is we said, look, some of these people, let's take for example the blocking of the Pirate Bay. Some of these people weren't visiting the Pirate Bay. They weren't users of the Pirate Bay. And so when the Pirate Bay was blocked, you could think of them as like a control group, right? Blocking the Pirate Bay had no effect on these people. So if we were to think of this as like a medical drug test, they would be the control group. We've given them a sugar pill, right? A placebo. But then there were some users who were making light use of the Pirate Bay. Maybe they went to the Pirate Bay 2 or 3 times in the months before it was blocked. If you think of these users, these guys were given a little bit of medicine, right? They were given a pill that was maybe 80% sugar and 20% medicine, right? So in some sense, they've been lightly impacted by the block. And then, of course, there are users that were heavy users of the Pirate Bay. We see users who were going to the Pirate Bay 100 to 150 times per month in the months before it was blocked. These users were heavily shocked by the blocking of the Pirate Bay. It was a major treatment for them. Think of it as having given them a pill, 100% medicine. And so the idea of what we're going to do is we're going to view their visits to other unblocked piracy sites as well as legal sites over time, and we're going to ask, do the non-users of the Pirate Bay have any change in their legal consumption, in their legal media consumption? If so, consider that like the control group, right? And we're going to ask whether light users of the Pirate Bay increase or change their use of legal content more than the control users, the non-users of the Pirate Bay. And also, do the heavy users of the Pirate Bay change their use of legal sites even more than everybody else? But we're not just going to do this with 3 different users, we're going to do it with 10 different groups of users. So essentially what we've set up is a lot like what it would look like if you did a medical drug trial. But we've done it as a social experiment in the United Kingdom with piracy website blocking. So I'll show you some results. I just want to highlight, there's a lot more in the work that we've done. I just want to highlight some maybe show you a little bit about how we looked at this, and then I'll skip right to the results so you have a sense of what we found. The first question's easiest. We don't need any sophisticated methodology to answer this question. If you just want to know, did the website blocks actually decrease traffic to the blocked websites? The answer is yes. We saw a 90% reduction in visits to the blocked websites during each of the 3 waves of blocks. So they were effective at getting people to not go to the Pirate Bay or whatever other sites were blocked. But then the second question is, did that actually have any impact on total piracy? Right? Did the people who could no longer get to the Pirate Bay, did they go find other pirate websites or did they stop pirating? So I'll show you just some graphs from 2 different ways. On the left here, what you see is our graph from the Pirate Bay site block, the first wave of blocks. And while you can see the x-axis here is essentially users' pre-block visits to the Pirate Bay, and the y-axis is their change in total piracy site visits. The reason this is interesting is because you do see a negative correlation here, but the slope of that line, what this showed us was that for every 12 blocked visits to the Pirate Bay, total pirate visits only went down by 1. That means that out of every 12 individuals that could no longer get to the Pirate Bay, 11 of them went to other piracy sites, and only 1 of them stopped pirating. So blocking the biggest piracy site in the UK by itself didn't really have a very large effect on total piracy. People basically found their way around that block, or they used virtual private networks, or they just went to other pirate sites. But it's interesting because about a year and a half later, when 19 sites were blocked at the same time, the response was very different. Again, you see this negative correlation here, but the slope of this line is very different from this one. And here what we found is that for every 3 blocked visits, total piracy site visits been down by 2.5. In other words, if we put that in the terms before, for every 12 people that were going to the blocked sites, 10 of them stopped pirating when 19 sites were blocked. Only 2 of them went to other pirate sites that were unblocked. So this was much more effective. And by the way, when we looked at 53 site blocks later, a year later, we found a similar effect that we had in the November 19 site blocks. So there's a very different, it's an interesting discrepancy between these two. And I think that's very logical, right? If I were to shut down your favorite piracy site, you might know what your second favorite piracy site is. So it's probably almost costless for you to go continue pirating at the other site that you like to visit. But if I were to shut down 19 of the biggest piracy sites in the country, how many of you out here right now know your 20th favorite piracy site? Right? I certainly don't. So I think this makes a lot of sense, is that site blocking works when a number of major sites are blocked simultaneously, not when 1 or 2 big sites are blocked. But the question you can ask me is, okay, piracy went down in that second wave, but was there any impact on legal consumption? So now these graphs are slightly different. The x-axis in these graphs is an individual's change in total piracy, and the y-axis is their before and after change in legal consumption. And what you can see here in the left graph, when the Pirate Bay was blocked, I don't know about you, but I can't find any meaningful pattern in these dots, and neither can sophisticated regression analysis either. So when the Pirate Bay was blocked, not only did it cause a very little reduction in total piracy, it caused no noticeable increase in legal consumption. But you can see a very different pattern when 19 sites were blocked simultaneously in November. What you see here is a very negative correlation. This says that the more that an individual reduced their total piracy, the more that they increased their legal consumption after the blocks, right? You can see it's a very clear relationship here. It's very easy to eyeball the best fit line through these. I'll skip over a couple of the other graphs in the interest of brevity, but if you were to look through the paper, we did a lot of robustness checks to make absolutely certain that everything that I'm about to tell you is truly a causal effect of website blocks and not something else that happened to happen simultaneously. So we did a lot of work to make sure that we're really finding the impact of the blocks separate from everything else that was happening at this time in the United Kingdom. The results we found are this. In May 2012, when the Pirate Bay was blocked, it did cause a 90% decrease in visits to the Pirate Bay, but it caused only a very small decrease in total piracy, and it caused no noticeable increase in legal consumption. The net result, most pirates found a way to continue pirating. But in November 2013, when 19 sites were blocked, this caused an 85% decrease in traffic to the blocked sites. It also caused a 30% decrease in total piracy throughout the United Kingdom. And as a result, what we saw was a 12% increase in visits to paid legal sites like iTunes or Netflix and other sites where people could pay for content. Now, people have asked me before, do you think that 12% increase is significant or meaningful? The first way I answer this is with a joke. I say, if I could increase your salary next year by 12%, would you be happy? But I think that perhaps a less funny way of thinking about it is that, when you talk to creators and producers, if you ask them, what could you do if your budget were another 10 or 12% higher, I think you get a very enthusiastic response. I think the creator of Game of Thrones has been known to talk about how many more dragon scenes he'd love to have if he could get another 10% added to his budget. Later in November 2014, we saw a similar effect to the 19 site blocks. When we blocked 53 sites, we saw it caused a 90% decrease in visits to blocked sites, a 22% decrease in total piracy throughout the country, and it caused about a 10 to 12% increase in legal consumption. Now the question is, does this 10 to 12% increase stack with the former one? I don't know the answer to that because we don't have enough data to figure that out. What I do know is that part of this was additional revenues, and part of this was helping to maintain the effect of the prior blocks. And what I mean by that is that while website blocking does have cause an increase on legal sales, over time, word gets out, and if a new pirate site comes up that is safe and reliable and useful, over time people tend to hear about it, and perhaps you would see a return towards piracy. Additional waves of website blocking tend to help prevent this from happening. So I've already kind of explained this, but we have a pretty clear explanation for why it is that the Pirate Bay block was ineffective, but the other blocks were effective. Basically, when you block one site, no matter how big it is, it's very easy for people to keep pirating. And therefore, why would they go buy legally when purchasing legally costs them money and it's so easy to go find another pirate site? But when you block a lot of sites at once, it's actually kind of difficult to find another safe, reliable pirate site in order to use it. I'm not saying it's terribly difficult, and clearly there are a lot of people that continue to pirate, right? I mean, 70 or 80% of piracy continued. But if you can cause a 10 or 20% reduction in piracy because some people now find it no longer worthwhile to do so, now you get this 10 or 12% increase in legal sales. So here's the broad conclusions from the research. And by the way, we've done more research on website blocking. We've also looked at policies in Brazil and found similar effects when country, sort of Brazilian-specific piracy websites were shut down or blocked. What we found is that blocking just one popular piracy site has little impact on total piracy and no impact on legal consumption. Simultaneous blocking of multiple sites significantly reduces piracy and increases legal consumption. And so, you know, in the broad scheme of all of our research, where we find some anti-piracy enforcement doesn't work and some does, piracy website blocking can be an effective tool at reducing piracy, but also at increasing legal consumption. The other thing that we find interesting, and I think Frank touched on this, is that piracy website blocking seems to be more politically viable in a lot of countries than what are seen as perhaps more heavy-handed policies that target the actual consumers of piracy. The idea of, you know, if I catch you pirating 3 times, I'm going to remove access to the internet, right? Those policies have tended not to work very well in other countries because they're not easy to politically support. Versus website blocking is relatively kind of non-invasive, right? All we're doing is sort of blocking access to a couple of sites that host mostly illegitimate content. That said, piracy website blocking does take time. It takes time to get good. I said that, it's a funny way of saying it, but to get good at it. The reason that only one site was blocked in the first wave is that it was somewhat difficult for the internet service providers to figure out how to do website blocking well at first. If we're supposed to block access to the piratebay.org, and a mirror site comes into existence the next day, the piratebay.se, do we need to block that too? And at first, they weren't very good at that, but over time, as the United Kingdom, the internet service providers got better at dealing with these domain shuffling that pirate sites tend to do, and I think that's a part of why the UK was able to block so many sites in their successive waves. They got efficient at site blocking, and I think that was a big part of getting effective at it as well. I did a little bit of research before coming here, and my understanding is that in Indonesia there is a lot of site blocking is actually quite successful in terms of the ability to block a number of sites and to have, you know, successive waves of website blocking. So if I had to guess, I haven't done the research myself, but if I had to guess at the benefit that your creative industries are getting as a result of site blocking, I would think it's more in line with the November site blocks that I studied rather than the Pirate Bay website block. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank and Brett, for the insightful presentation. And now we have Alex and Angga. Now we will have Alex and Angga one by one to respond to the speakers' presentations. Probably we'll start with Alex Sihar first from the Indonesian National Film Board, sorry. I tried to translate it. So, from the National Film Board. So probably Alex, I will start with what do you think of, like when Frank said about the loss of the potential economy possibility in the creative economy sector with the piracy specifically, and also from Badan Perfilman Indonesia, do you have any program or like how do you like tackle this issue for the filmmakers, or any other opinion that you think will be also important?
Ya, presentasi Dr. Danaher tadi, if it's okay, we'll be speaking in Indonesian. Thank you. Presentasi Dr. Danaher tadi menarik menurut saya dalam konteks United Kingdom. Begitu penutupannya masif dilakukan di 53 major sites, terjadi peningkatan 10% di legalnya. Itu data yang menarik karena nggak bisa apple to apple di compare dalam konteks Indonesia karena kita nggak punya data yang sama. Satu, kedua, apa yang tersedia ini dalam realitasnya, apa yang tersedia di pirated website itu tidak sama dengan apa yang tersedia di legal provider. Jadi belum tentu ketika sesuatu ditutup di sini, di sana akan terjadi peningkatan karena hal yang dicari pun berbeda. Seperti misalnya apa ya, yang paling besar dikonsumsi saya rasa dangdut dan sebagainya belum tentu juga tersedia dengan lengkap di legal provider. Nah, keadaan-keadaan itu juga harusnya jadi konsideran dalam konteks kita, bahwa kita sudah melakukannya dengan saya nggak bisa bilang baik, tapi sudah melakukannya dengan upaya yang cukup dari Kominfo. Tapi apakah itu cukup efektif atau tidak? Saya rasa ukuran-ukuran itu masih perlu untuk diperiksa. Permasalahannya kan kita nggak punya cukup instrumen dalam konteks Indonesia, kita nggak punya cukup instrumen legal untuk bisa menegakkan yang dianggap keadilan dalam konteks eksploitasi hak kekayaan intelektual. Di undang-undang hak cipta itu bahkan di undang-undang hak cipta kita itu bahkan tidak berbicara spesifik tentang itu. Dia di pasal 43D ternyata bentuk-bentuk penyebaran melalui sistem informasi bila dia dianggap tidak merugikan atau tidak punya impact ekonomi, masalahnya itu ada tulisan tentang impact ekonomi, dia dianggap bukan pelanggaran. Jadi kita sendiri juga punya masalah di instrumen yang kita punya. Undang-undang hak cipta kita lebih berat berbicara untuk yang 2014 ya, yang baru banyak berat berbicara untuk kepentingan musik, tapi perlindungannya terhadap yang lebih dari itu belum ada. Itu tentunya kita perlu diskusikan lebih lanjut. Selain itu, di luar itu, permasalahannya kita selalu melihat subjeknya sebagai maling. Perspektif pemilik hak cipta selalu melihat orang lain sebagai maling yang kalau dikasih gratis pasti ngambil. Ada perspektif itu yang terus-menerus rotan, yang tentunya perlu kita pelajari lebih lanjut, perlu dieksplorasi lebih lanjut, menempatkan subjek penonton dalam hal ini adalah downloader gitu misalnya, sebagai konsumen itu harus diperkuat juga. Internet literacy tentunya bermasalah, tentunya terus harus kita dorong ke depannya dengan banyak berbagai cara. Tapi juga bukan cuma konsumennya, tapi pemahaman keseluruhan tentang apa itu hak cipta dan bagaimana mengeksploitasinya dan siapa yang boleh mengaksesnya juga penting buat ditingkatkan. Untuk itu bukan sekedar blocking website, nah itu mungkin bisa jadi sangat efektif dalam waktu yang singkat, tapi peningkatan pembelajaran publik tentang apa itu hak cipta jadi hal yang jauh-jauh lebih mendasar. Bukan cuma si penonton atau consumer, tapi juga dari pihak filmmaker, content maker. Bagaimana ngomongnya? bentar. Di sisi lain, menjaga konten di undang-undang yang kita punya itu diberikan keseluruhannya terhadap keseluruhan penjagaannya diberikan kepada publik maupun kepada pemerintah dalam hal ini adalah penegak hukum. Cuma logika penegak hukumnya pun bukan full pidana, tapi masuknya pun ke pengadilan niaga perdata. Kekuatan-kekuatan seperti itu juga perlu revisit, kita perlu kaji pula. Dan ada hal yang lebih mendasar lagi, kita nggak pernah berbicara tentang hak publik. Kita selalu berbicara tentang hak pemilik konten. Dengan asumsi bahwa kalau diketahui hak pemilik kontennya, maka yang bukan hak pemilik konten adalah hak publik. Kalau kita nggak pernah berbicara tentang hak publik apa sebenarnya, hak konsumen apa sebenarnya, saya juga nggak ngerti. Kita perlu juga diskusi soal ini dalam konteks di digital information seperti ini segini tinggi. Hak publik sebenarnya apa? Mendapatkan pengetahuan yang mana? Terpapar pada pengetahuan seberapa besar? Bagaimana mereka boleh mendapatkan pengetahuan tersebut? Atau sebenarnya masyarakat kita punya hak apa sih terhadap apa yang kita pikirkan? Kalau saya rasa ketika itu sudah bisa terjawab, maka perlindungan terhadap konten yang kita miliki jadi juga bisa terjawab. Kita selalu mulai dari yang sini nih. Kita punya hak apa? Penonton atau publik punya hak apa? Kita nggak pernah boleh. Dan saya rasa itu salah satu kontribusi kita juga untuk tidak ngobrolin itu. Kalau kita mulai ngobrolin itu, menentukan hak besar atau kemudian memberi kisi-kisi tentang hak besarnya apa, maka kemudian kita juga bisa mengatur hak content provider, hak pemilik rights itu apa dalam konteks Indonesia. Infrastruktur pelindungan terhadap konten Indonesia juga belum cukup kompleks. Kayak kita nggak punya sistem registry international numbering-nya. Ya, DPI sedang berusaha ngobrol sama pusat sudah punya logika international numbering-nya, jadi seperti buku misalnya yang punya logika ISBN, sehingga kalau terjadi apa-apa tracing-nya langsung cepat. Ini film tidak punya di Indonesia maksudnya. Ada dua logika numbering internasional, ada APROFI sama ISAN yang perlu kita jajaki sama-sama dengan sama-sama memilih hak cipta untuk mulai memikirkan untuk konteks pelindungan baik dalam negeri maupun luar negeri. International numbering jadi cukup penting sebenarnya ketika kodifikasi bisa dilakukan. Di sisi lain, Komen nggak tahu sebelum ini harus tadi Pak Samuel sudah bicara atau masih yang nanti Samuel Pengarama dari Kominfo. Permen Kominfo tentang OTT akan keluar. Pak Rudiantara bilang harusnya keluar dalam semester triwulan pertama 2018, tapi sampai sekarang belum. Kayaknya maksudnya dalam semester ini. Dan mungkin nanti bisa diobrolin dengan Pak Samuel Pengarama di mungkin sesi berikutnya sebagai dirjen yang menangani hal itu. Kami juga menunggu kita untuk kemudian diobrolin tentang kemungkinan apa aja yang diatur dalam Kominfo tentang OTT tersebut. Kurang lebih itu dulu kali ya.
Terima kasih Alex. So I'm just going to summarize a bit about what Alex speaking. Number one is about the availability of the legal platform in Indonesia. Sometimes the one that looks for pirated material, the content itself is different. The one available in the pirated website might be different than the one in the legal platform. So it's two different things in the case of Indonesia. Some, like in response to your research about like how's the one big pirated website and in UK. So in that sense, in Indonesia, when we do, first we don't have the data, but number two, also because the content that people are looking for for pirated material is different. The one that is available in pirated website might not be available in here in a legal platform because we don't have a legal platform here. So that's another case with piracy in Indonesia. And then number two, Alex is also talking about the legal instrument in Indonesia itself. Like for example, when we talk about the law, yeah, if we talk about the law, that it's not accommodating enough with the needs of the content maker. For example, we are allowed to make a video, like for example, live video, as long as it is not giving any economic loss to the content maker. So that's a very ambiguous rules, because that who define the economic loss and how do you measure the economic loss? So even the legal instrument, like the law instrument in Indonesia, is not sufficient enough to prevent that. And also in regard to the protection. And number three, Alex is talking about the public knowledge itself, about the intellectual property understanding, protection, not only the content maker, but to the public rights as well in the digital technology era. And we don't have that as well in the in the national level. Like everyone don't have the same knowledge about this. So in that sense, then to talk to combat the piracy itself, it gets more complicated. And when we talk about the converting use from the pirated to the legal platform, for example. So those are the 3 points that at least I remember from us. Okay, now next to Angga Sasongko. Angga Sasongko last year involved in making a PSA about piracy, for piracy, and then it's shown in the cinema and also other many channels. Probably that Angga can share his experience when he did that last year, and then the impact of the piracy video against piracy video last year.
Oke, terima kasih. Tahun lalu memang kita diminta oleh teman-teman oleh APROFI dan MBA untuk membuat sebuah iklan layanan masyarakat. Waktu itu idenya adalah juga bukan hanya sekedar satu komunikasi visual, tapi juga bagaimana komunikasi visual ini bisa punya elemen-elemen yang secara sublime menekankan tentang kekuatan dari intellectual property. Jadi waktu itu kita bikin, karena saya punya IP yang saya kembangkan namanya filosofi kopi, maka menggunakan karakter dan hal-hal yang menyangkut filosofi kopi di iklan tersebut. Setelah masuk ke bioskop, lalu di distribusi juga secara digital, measure-nya tentang apakah iklan tersebut punya impact terhadap kurangnya konsumsi bajakan, saya nggak tahu pasti, tapi bahwa kemudian ada conversation tentang knowledge baru, atau misalnya perbincangan di sosial media tentang konten bajakan dan bagaimana mengapresiasi konten itu jadi mulai muncul. Tapi kalau saya boleh melihat secara lebih luas gitu, saya pikir apa yang saya kerjakan itu hanya satu bentuk untuk bisa punya satu respon di hilir gitu. Padahal kalau kita mau lihat ke belakang, Apalagi sekarang kita mungkin berbeda dengan bagaimana bajakan dinikmati tahun 2012, 2013, 2014, karena waktu itu mungkin source-nya perekaman secara manual maksudnya perekaman secara langsung di bioskop atau kemudian print dari DVD, terus merekam dari televisi gitu. Ada effort yang lebih untuk melakukan itu dan resiko yang tinggi juga untuk melakukan itu, membawa kamera ke dalam bioskop kan itu sebuah effort yang nggak mudah juga gitu kan. Nah tapi di 2 tahun belakangan ini saya pikir sekuensi jadi berbeda. Kalau kita ngomong tentang iklan yang waktu itu APROFI bikin, dia ada di paling ujung. Bagaimana dia memberikan pemahaman, memberikan edukasi terhadap publik tentang apa yang sebaiknya dilakukan dan tidak baik untuk dilakukan. Tapi di tengah ada distribusi, dan di distribusi sudah coba didorong dengan bagaimana semua stakeholder punya peran aktif untuk memblok situs-situs bajakan di digital. Bahwa itu efektif, pelaksanaannya efisien, menurut saya belum perlu diukur. Tapi 2 tahun belakangan ini apa yang terjadi di hulu, bagaimana material itu didapat, source itu didapat juga jadi penting. Saya pikir sekarang jadi jauh lebih mudah ketika distribusi konten secara digital melalui platform yang legal menjadi source untuk platform ilegal mendapatkan material gitu. Kalau kita bisa melakukan penyuluhan atau literasi lewat material audio komunikasi visual kayak iklan TV atau print atau segala macam, terus kemudian melakukan side blocking di tengah, tapi source-nya juga makin mudah untuk didapat, maka membuat www.bajakan.com jadi bajakan.net, jadi bajakan.id, jadi bajakan.co itu bukan hal yang sulit sebenarnya. Di blok 1 dia akan bikin 3 gitu. Nah sekarang saya pikir perlu punya kesadaran di seluruh stakeholder untuk nggak cuman rely on literasi publik, tapi juga bagaimana kita memprotek konten yang kita tahu. Kayak tadi Mas Alex bilang, apakah hak publik juga penting untuk dibicarakan. Di satu sisi, ketika ada satu kreator yang memutuskan untuk menjadikan karyanya untuk publik, maka tidak perlu diperdebatkan lagi kan. Tapi ketika misalnya kita sebagai kreator memutuskan untuk bahwa kita mau protek konten kita mau protek IP kita, terus kita punya deal dengan 1 atau 2 platform, maka salah satu kewajiban dari platform legal ini juga adalah melakukan usaha terus-menerus berinvestasi terhadap proteksi di platformnya tersebut gitu. Ini yang perlu juga kita bicarakan, dalam arti apakah sekarang dengan berkembangnya platform menonton legal berbayar, di satu sisi mereka harus sadar bahwa pembajakan dan konsumsi secara ilegal di digital mempengaruhi bisnis mereka, sehingga yang perlu mereka lakukan juga sebisa mungkin memproteksi konten yang kita punya untuk bisa aman ada di platform mereka. Terakhir, saya sama Mbak Lala Timoti ada di satu forum di FX waktu itu, Opsat gitu. Ada satu pembicara bilang bahwa mereka dengan sangat mudah ngambil konten dari platform-platform legal yang kemudian mereka bisa gampang taruh di open source platform kayak YouTube atau buka website sendiri secara ilegal gitu. Dan ini perlu juga kita perhatikan supaya melihatnya lebih holistik bahwa site blocking penting, membuat literasi terhadap untuk publik terhadap pentingnya penghargaan, apresiasi terhadap intellectual property, tapi juga bagaimana kita menyumbat di ujung, di paling awal menyumbat material untuk semakin terprotek gitu. Bagaimana sekarang kita lihat perbincangan berbulan-bulan tentang isu Cambridge Analytica karena bocornya data pengguna gitu kan, itu jadi isu yang sangat esensial dan sangat fundamental buat digital hari ini gitu kan. Jadi itu juga.
Terima kasih Angga. So I will explain a bit. So Angga is a producer and also director. So he explained and he shared his experience when he did the video for anti-piracy a few years back. And through his experience, since we don't have a concrete data about the effectiveness of the video itself, however, on the social media level, that video was have a big discussion through the social media, because in the video itself, Angga used this character from his IP, from his film, and also combined with other celebrities in Indonesia. So it creates a discussion about IP at that time. But aside from that experience, Angga was also talking about the holistic approach that should be done by the state in Indonesia. Since it's not only about making video is one thing, and at that particular time, the video is talking about piracy in the cinema. So when you go to the cinema, people are doing the video and they really record it. So it's very one specific type of piracy. So and now the development of digital is already different with all the platform and everything. So in a way, what Angga is also concerned about, again, the same that when Alex posting the question of education, the knowledge of intellectual property for public in general, the content maker and also the public and the user. But also another thing that Angga is posting the question to the OTT platform. It's getting more and more OTT platform in Indonesia, but the safety of this legal website, because he was in a panel before where so one of the panelists say that it's easy to get, for example, his film from a legal platform, paid platform. So that's also a question that Angga raised with this legal platform. Why then people can easily download his film, for example, and then put it in the open source. So the protection in the OTT platform is also very important, and this is also what he raised for this discussion. So we don't have much left time for us. So I think I will pose the question to the audience first if they have any question for all the panelists. Silakan bila ada pertanyaan dari silakan. Mungkin kita coba satu dulu ya.
Thank you very much, and I really am glad that I attended this seminar, because I had always thought that watching pirated content is exclusively a problem for Indonesia, but seeing all the statistics, I think it's clear that piracy is a global issue, and this is, of course, I think this is good in a way that it opens cooperation among countries to tackle the piracy, but also it's more challenging because it's human nature. If you can get free content, why bother to pay? So I would like to address one question actually to Brad. You said that in your presentation, you mentioned that UK has found a more effective way to tackle the website that contains all the pirate content. Can you explain how the UK is doing that? And also to movie producer and also for Frank and Brad, if you know, I believe we're living in such a high technology era now, and I believe there's nothing that you cannot do without technology. Is there any technology that you know that's developing in certain countries that actually could tackle the online stream of these pirated movies? You know, because as much as we heard from this morning discussion, even though the government is working very hard to tackle this illegal website, but there's, I think, the private sector must have. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll take the first question, defer the second one to Frank. So, preface to this, I'm not an engineer or a legal expert. My expertise is in using data to figure out the effectiveness of these policies. But I do understand your question. What I know about what has happened in the UK is one of the most important things that the internet service, actually, that both the courts, the government, as well as the internet service providers have done together is they've created a system that legally and technologically speaking makes the internet service providers very agile when they're asked to block a site. And what I mean by that is that if they're asked to block the Pirate Bay and they're told, hey, right now the Pirate Bay is at thepiratebay.org. One, legally speaking, there is now a precedent, and that also means that the piratebay.se, if tomorrow the piratebay.se becomes a mirror site, that should be blocked as well. So legally, there's now a precedent for that. And two, the internet service providers have become very cost efficient at being aware of where these mirror sites are. Basically figuring out where are the mirror sites. I believe that they've actually automated most of that process, and so it's kind of a two-pronged approach between the legal system supporting the idea that blocking one site also means blocking mirror sites for that site. And two, having developed a little bit of scripts or technology or software that allows them to quickly identify those mirror sites. So that's a big part of what I was referring to. There's also the question of how easy is it for the content industries to submit to the courts a list of sites and get it approved that they should be blocked. That was a time-consuming process at first, and now it's much less time-consuming than it was before. It's actually a lot easier to pass this through the courts. There's a system in place where the content owners provide a certain level of evidence that says, hey, these really are infringing sites, and now it's a pretty smooth case to get those sites blocked.
Thanks. I'm not sure I quite understood the second part of your question, but I think it had to do with private and public sector cooperation. Yeah, I think that's essential in any of the territories I've ever dealt with. You have to have a good degree of communication going on between the industries and the ISPs. As Brett has said, it's now kind of routine and friendly in the United Kingdom. Jurisdictions that I've been exposed to in Asia, the relationships are often more contentious, and it can take quite a little bit of time before the people get comfortable with each other and understand these things. But I think you also asked about the tool that I referenced in my presentation. Yeah, that was something that I found just some research, and I defer maybe some people who live here a little bit better than I do. But it was a reference about an automated system that captures 70,000 sites a month that are deemed objectionable by the government. And the quote was that the sites primarily are centered on pornography and radical terrorism. But I suppose if they spent $15 million on this technology. Now, it would seem to me that this technology can be fine-tuned in such a way that it could also be programmed to look for copyright infringing sites. But this is just some research I found over the weekend. It was a news article in the Jakarta newspaper back in February. So I think it'd be a good question for some of the government reps.
Mungkin Mungkin keterangannya tadi kalau pertanyaannya tentang sebuah mesin yang untuk crawling mencari, itu yang punya pemerintah. Jadi kalau ditanya tadi ada apa nggak teknologinya, ada, udah dimiliki, sudah. Nah, itu masalah lain.
Bahwa kita kalau punya mesin juga problemnya kan delik, jadi kita harus ngadu dulu.
Untuk konteks ini ya, konteks piracy. Tapi mesin itu kan tidak dibangun untuk itu, mesin itu dibangun buat terorisme, buat ngecek teror.
Berhubung waktunya sudah habis, jadi kita bila memang ada pertanyaan lainnya bisa menghubungi langsung. So if they have question, can they approach you because we are running out of time? Ya, jadi nanti kalau memang ada pertanyaan yang spesifik untuk Frank atau Brad, mungkin bisa approach langsung setelah panel ini. Juga untuk Angga Sasongko dan Sihar. Oke, untuk itu saya akan menutup sesi panel 2 ini. Terima kasih banyak untuk perhatiannya dan kedatangannya. Selanjutnya akan dilanjutkan dengan sesi 3. Semoga masih bisa hadir di sini ya. Terima kasih sekali lagi. Dan terima kasih untuk para panel semuanya.
Baik, terima kasih Mbak Taurisia, Meiske. Dan hadirin sekalian, kita akan jeda makan siang selama 60 menit. Jadi nanti kita akan berkumpul kembali di sini. Oh ya, maaf. Sebelumnya kita akan memberikan cindera mata. Mohon untuk tetap tinggal di panggung. Kami undang Ibu Linda Gozali untuk memberikan cindera mata. Baik, mohon bisa foto bersama dulu Ibu Linda. Foto bersama dulu sebelumnya. Agak maju ke depan bisa. Boleh maju ke depan sedikit supaya nggak ketutupan meja. Baik, terima kasih. Kami persilakan para pembicara, moderator dan Ibu Linda Gozali untuk kembali ke tempat duduk. Dan kita akan jeda makan siang dulu selama 60 menit. Nanti kami harapkan hadirin semua bisa kembali lagi di ruangan ini pada pukul 13.30 karena kita masih akan punya 2 agenda lagi. Agenda berikutnya setelah makan siang adalah keynote presentation yang masih terkait dengan panel kedua barusan, yakni mengenai maximizing the value of intellectual property rights in the digital age, yang akan disampaikan oleh Bapak Justice Sihar Perdana Kusuma dari KRK Advocates Intellectual Property. Kami harapkan Anda semua bisa hadir kembali di sini. Kami sediakan makan siang di area foyer, dan bila Anda ingin langsung melaksanakan salat zuhur, tempat sholat sudah ada di area basement. Sampai ketemu lagi nanti pukul 13.30. Selamat siang.